present Councillors Allison and Anderson. Councillor Brogan? Oh yes, sorry. Apologies, I didn't see you coming in, Councillor Brogan. Also present today is Councillor Brown. Councillor Archie Buchanan? No, I'm not seeing you present. Also present today are Councillors Matthew Buchanan, Kalikis, Dewar, Devlin, Donnelly. Apologies from Councillor Fagan. Councillor Falconer is also present. I have apologies from Councillor Frame, but I can see that Councillor Chalmers has joined as a substitute. Also present today are Councillors Handy, Bodett and Horn. Councillor Horsham? I'm not seeing you present. Also present today is Councillor Hose. Councillor Logan is also present. Also present are Councillors MacDonald and McClymont. Councillor Nugent? I'm not seeing you present. Also present today are Councillors Ross, Scott, Walker, Watson and Williams. Have a number of officers present, and with that I'll pass back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Elizabeth Ann. So item 1 is declaration of interest. Do we have any? No. Item 2 is minutes of the previous meeting, and that's pages 5 to 14. Could those be approved as a correct record? Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to monitoring items. Item 3 is the Social Work Resources Workforce Monitoring, 1st of February to 31st of March 2025, and it's pages 15 to 22. And if I can ask Eileen to speak to the report. Thank you.
Good morning. So this report provides the standard employment information for the resource covering the period February and March 2025. So section 4.1 outlines the attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in Appendix 1. The absence rate for the resource for March was 8.6% compared to a council-wide figure of 5.9%. This is increased by 0.1% compared to the previous month, and compared to the same period last year, it's increased by 0.7%. And at that point, the projected annual average for the resource was 8.1% compared to a council-wide figure of 5.9%. Members are aware that the resource managers continue to follow the maximising attendance procedures and work with personnel colleagues to ensure that the supports are taken to make sure employees can return to work and that appropriate actions are taken. In addition, we've previously updated that there was a review in relation to maximising attendance, and there's some additional resources that have been directed in relation to that, and we can see that coming through in terms of the absence stats for April is 7.8% for the resource, and then for May it's down to 7.2%. So we can see an impact now of the additional resources and focus in relation to maximising attendance. Moving on then, section 4.2 to 4.5, and the details are in Appendix 2. The main points are that during the period there was 267 occupational health referrals, there was 8 disciplinary hearings, there was 1 grievance and 7 dignity at work issues were raised. There was 19 accidents or incidents that were recorded during the period, and there was 11 leavers, and of them 9% completed exit interviews. And I'm referring committee back to section 2 and ask that the workforce monitoring information for social work resources covering the period February and March 2025 be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. I've got Councillor Faulkner.
Thanks, Chair. Page 16, 5.1. There's been a decrease of 22 employees from December to the 8th of March. Was that all right? In social media, there was a photo down the stairs induction on the 14th of April when there was about 40 to 50 people there. Are they counted in anywhere?
They won't be covered in that return because that's a sort of standard return that covers the period up to the 14th of December 2024, and any inductions that have taken place quite recently would be captured as part of a further return. So it's once a quarter that the staffing watch return takes place. So they would be captured in the first quarter of the year, and you would see an increase.
Okay, thanks, Eileen. Councillor Allison.
Couple of things, Chair. Disappointing to see there was only one exit interview conducted. There was a lot of discussion in meetings years ago, and that had increased in percentage terms quite significantly. So it's disappointing to see that dropping again. Also, a total of 11 leavers, and on to the previous point, yet with 22 less for the same period last year. Does that suggesting that we have a lengthening vacancies list?
In terms of current vacancies, we're actually looking in a better position than we've been for quite some time. We will see a fluctuation, but given the size of the resource, if you think of the resources, almost like 2,500 employees, when we've got 11 leavers, and then in one period and then maybe 22 in another, the fluctuation is actually, as the overall percentage is quite marginal. So that perhaps provides a bit of context around that. In relation to exit interviews, we still have a lot of effort in terms of trying to ensure that exit interviews are completed. Employees will get a link sent to, they can have an option to have an online forum that they can complete, and there's also reminders sent out around that, as well as the option when they're actually letting their manager know that they're leaving, the manager can prompt in terms of the exit interview to be completed. So we still continue our efforts to make sure that we get as much information as we possibly can in relation to leavers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hose.
Hi, good morning. I wonder if you expand on the increased number of dignity at work cases. It was 0 this period last year, and now we've increased to 7. It seems quite an increase.
I can't go into details of specific cases, you'll understand. However, we have seen an increase, and it's relating to an incident that's involving one individual and several other individuals across a particular location.
Oh, so they're all connected?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions, so thank you for the report, Eileen. Do we agree to the recommendations in section 2.1? Agreed? Thank you. Moving on to item 4, Social Work Resource Plan 2024 to 25, quarter 4 progress, pages 23 to 46, and could ask Craig to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the committee will note that of the 27 measures that are included within the report, we have got 2 that are noted as amber and 3 that are red, and these are provided in some detail in Appendix 2. In 5.3, we've also listed a range of areas of particular note, and this also covers some aspects of service development and improvement made in the period. In terms of 5.4, again, we have provided some additional detail in relation to those areas that highlighted earlier, and also it describes the current position and actions being taken to seek to bring about improvement in these respective areas. And beyond that, I would take you back to section 2 and the recommendations contained therein. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. I don't see any comments, questions. So thank you for the report. Do we agree to the recommendations in section 2?
Agreed.
Agreed. Moving on to items for discussion. Item 5 is the Social Work Resource Plan 25 to 26, pages 47 to 68, and could ask Craig again to speak to the report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So again, you will see, as detailed in section 4, the areas that are covered within the plan, which outlines the key areas for the year ahead, the proposed resource outcomes, the measures around those, and the actions and indeed resourcing the plan. You'll also see in advance of that at 3.6 that we take due account of our risk plan, and indeed the actions set out within the resource plan seeks to mitigate any of those risks. The report itself, which is provided in some detail, covers the main areas of children and justice, adults, which is obviously via the Health and Social Care Partnership, and also the performance and support services area of the resource. And you'll also see that contained within that report is the respective actions contained and the detail provided around all of those. And again, I would take you back to the recommendations as set out in section 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. I don't see any... Oh, sorry, Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much. Sorry for I'm getting a bit of echo here. Getting a bit of echo here. I was going to ask you
Okay.
two. Sorry, say again.
Sorry, we can hear you okay, Robert. Yeah.
All right, okay. I was getting a bit of feedback. Sorry about that. I wanted to ask you two things, if I might. The first related to the reports to the reporter, which are have a bit of an issue both in this report and the last one. And I wondered, in fact, if all these reports were reports of which action was taken, or whether it was one of these situations where they went to the report and then came back again without anything particularly happening. There's no process that we can get rid of there. And then the second one relates to the question of home care hours reduced at page 64. We've got a target of trying to reduce home hours reduced through the home assessment intervention. That seems reasonable, but do we have any kind of unforeseen consequences there in terms of reducing necessary home care, if you follow my point?
Thanks, Robert. Craig.
So if I pick up the second point, and Liam could probably pick up the first point about the reporter. So specifically in terms of the care at home hours, you'll be aware we've now introduced a service called our Home Assessment Team. And that is proving very successful in getting in and providing early support as part of the discharge plan, and in turn supporting people to maximise their independence. And we are seeing an average of somewhere around 35% of hours reduced from the time the person is first referred to the service and the service then moving away from the individual. And the service, the required service would then be handed over to mainstream service provision. So that's an area that we've been monitoring very carefully. We are going to be including that as part of our performance metrics for the new strategic commissioning plan. And indeed, that's also augmented by the work that we're seeing in Blantyre Life. We're seeing a good number of people going into Blantyre Life. Around about 50% of folk are then leaving Blantyre Life having reached a level of independence and utilising technology such that there's no requirement whatsoever for us to go in and continue to provide ongoing support. So in the round, we're very confident that these two measures are making the intended difference and indeed supporting people to maximise their independence. In terms of the reporters bit, if I hand back to Liam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. In relation to the progress that's been made within that, I think your question asked was there action taken in all these reports? What we'd say is, my understanding is there is action taken in all the reports when the reporter asks for a report and when we submit the report. We set up in Q3 and Q4, we set up liaison meetings with the reporter so we could keep on top of the numbers that are coming through and to make sure we were prioritising the reports. And hopefully what you'll see within the performance reports, Q1 and Q2 last year, we were in the 50%, we were nowhere near the target of 75%. In Q3 and Q4, we actually improved that and we hit an 85% and 91% target. That didn't give us to the end of year 75% target, but it took us closer to it. So what we're seeing is an improving trajectory and journey in relation to trying to meet that target. And what we're hoping to do is actually try and achieve that 75% target for this year, for 25-26. But in relation to our working relationship with the reporter, it's a very positive working relationship. And we've got regular meetings with them to make sure that we're prioritising the cases. And if there's any issues with timescales, that they're aware of that at the earliest opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions. Do we agree to recommendations in section 2.1? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, it's strengthening justice services capacity, and that's pages 69 to 72. And could I ask Liam again to speak to the report? Thank you. Oh, sorry, Gillian. Sorry, Gillian. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, for the opportunity to present the Strengthening Justice Services Capacity Report today. The purpose of the report is to provide an update on the confirmed Section 27 grant for Justice Social Work Services funding allocation to South Lanarkshire and proposals for strengthening local service capacity. Section 3 outlines the funding arrangements for 25-26, and South Lanarkshire Council have received an additional Section 27 grant funding to support increased workload and development of justice services, of which £0.555 million is available to invest. Section 4 highlights the priority areas for investment. 4.2 reiterates previous information provided to committee in respect of the forecasted increase of unpaid work hours over the next 5 years, 57%. In addition to further investment in unpaid work supervisors within Section 5, increased funding of £0.035 million will support protective equipment and unpaid work materials. Section 4.4 highlights the Moving Forward to Change programme delivery requirements. Similar to the projected increase for unpaid work orders, data informs us that there's been a 50% increase in the number of community payback orders with this programme requirement. To this end, it is proposed that additional qualified social work posts are embedded within this establishment. Section 4.6 outlines data reporting and analysis requirements and procurement activity for justice services associated with the priorities of community justice strategy and the requested resource to support this. Section 4.9 revisits the Recovery Orientated Justice Service, and this will be covered in more detail in Agenda Item 7. Section 5 outlines the number of posts required to take forward the above work within Section 6, outlining the total costs. I conclude today's paper by asking the committee to approve the following recommendations as outlined in Section 2. 1, that the update in relation to confirmed Section 27 grant funding for 25-26 and proposals for local investment be noted, and that it is approved that the additional posts as detailed in Section 5 be added to the social work resource establishment. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gillian. Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. I'm pretty sure that we've looked at S27 money before and taken on posts based on that. Now we're talking another 7 posts based on S27 money. I think my question basically is, what guarantee have we got of that money going forward, given that we're taking on permanent posts, and if that money stops coming to us, where does that basically leave us? Thanks.
Gillian.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Yes, there are no guarantees about future funding, except I would say that the Scottish Government had confirmed the funding up to 2027. I would say, obviously, there are, you will be aware of the national policy direction to reduce custody numbers and to look at trying to explore where feasible, where credible, the use of community payback orders and other community-based disposals. With that approach and trajectory going forward, I would say, it's prudent for us to consider how we continue to invest long-term in social work services. So, in conclusion, there are no guarantees, but, if we take in good faith that there is a commitment to support particularly justice social work services going forward, and embedding services and promoting and consolidating the workforce, then I would say this is the right approach to take. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. Councillor Ross.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm initially coming on to welcome this report and the additional funding of £5 million from the Scottish Government. It's also really good to see that, in fact, we're going to baseline the £15 million that was provisionally put forward for COVID recovery. I'm sure that the direction of travel, while it's not written in stone, is definitely the way that we should be looking at going here. This team do a valuable service, and I was looking at the areas of future investment, and I think they're all extremely good. And I would like to thank the team for the valuable work that they're doing at the present time, and hope that continues. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. I don't see any further points. I'll just echo John's points in relation to the work that the team do. It's absolutely vital in terms of an approach to less custodial sentences and more community-based and focused work, and obviously the resource is welcome because it's certainly the future direction of travel, and it's certainly the model that provides the best outcomes for people. So thank you for that, and thank you for the report and the good work. Moving on, sorry, do we agree the recommendations in section 2.1?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 7, and it's investing in recovery-orientated justice services, pages 73 to 78, and it's Gillian again to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, again for the opportunity to present this report on investing in the recovery-orientated justice services. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the impact of the South Lanarkshire Alcohol and Drug Problem Solving Court and Recovery-Orientated Justice Service. So Section 3 provides a background to committee approving this innovative project back in 2023, which was the first dual substance use problem-solving court in Scotland. The service is supported with social work services delivered by the Recovery-Orientated Justice team. The fundamental purpose of this initiative is to provide a public health approach to those with substance-related offending with a recovery-based focus. 3.5 outlines the original funding arrangements, in which a combination of funding from our Section 27 grant, Scottish Government CORA funding and our alcohol and drug partnership funding supported arrangements for a 2-year period. We clarify that in 3.6, having considered the data analysed of the reception to and impact of the pilot to date, and given the additional Section 27 grant funding now confirmed for the Council, as previously spoken about in agenda item 6 of this meeting, a recommendation is now being proposed to convert the pilot project to an ongoing part of South Lanarkshire Justice Social Work Services in partnership with Hamilton Sheriff Court. Section 4 outlines the positive impact the service is making, with Section 4.5 noting the independent evaluation, providing evidence that indicates that a public health approach to justice services is yielding positive results. Analysis of quantitative data has found that offending and substance use decreased for most individuals since being placed on a structured deferred sentence, with over 95% of people receiving support and sustaining their period of deferment or completing their structured deferred sentence successfully. Section 4.7 provides testament from service users and their families, and the team have recently won the prestigious Scottish Health Awards within the category of integrated care. 4.11 highlights the independent analysis of the impact of the Alcohol and Drug Problem Solving Court, and is continuing to do so both to contribute to national learning and is subject to approval of the recommendations here inform the further development of the local service. Section 5 outlines the permanent establishment request of a 0.5 team leader and 2 qualified social workers. Section 6.2 outlines the total cost of the staffing proposal at 5.1 to be funded from the additional 0.555 million Section 27 funding available for investment in 25 and 26. I conclude today's paper by asking the committee to approve the following recommendations. that the continuation of the South Lanarkshire Alcohol and Drug Problems Solving Court is supported, and that the recovery-orientated justice service becomes part of an ongoing service delivered by Justice Social Work Services, and that the specified fixed-term posts be made permanent within the social work resource establishment as detailed within section 5 of this report. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Gillian. Councillor Ross?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just another absolutely fabulous report. This team do so much good work, and it's really great to see that we're actually getting recognition out with South Lanarkshire for the work that you do. And see, when you look at the lived experiences and you realise the good work that this team are doing, I think they've to be congratulated, and it's a great thing for South Lanarkshire to be able to put forward these views which are taken on board internationally and nationally, and I thank the team for the great work that you're doing. Thank you.
So I'll pass on those comments to staff. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Councillor Allison?
Thanks, Chair. I agree with all of what John was saying about the report and the work that is being done. It is certainly very important, and it's good to see that it is happening. But it is concerning here again that what this report is really about is making the posts permanent. And although I can see that being very beneficial to the staff and understandable, it could leave us with a problem in a couple of years' time if the funding is not made available. Because this report highlights that we've lost funding already, and it's having to be replaced by S27. And I'm not sure that it makes good sense to create a potential problem in 2 years' time.
Can I ask Suman to respond to that? Thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Allison. So, your point's well made in a broader sense in terms of us needing to be very prudent about the utilisation of resources and to be very careful when we take on board additional permanent posts to our establishment. We're very cited upon that, not least given the financial pressures both for the Council and indeed for social work resources. What I would say is the points I would highlight, though, is that one, the core of funding here was only ever meant to be time limited. It was only ever meant to be a pilot, and we don't intend to take pilots unless we have a commitment to follow through on them, if indeed the results are found to be positive, which in this case they have been, and then some. In terms then of the way forward in respect of this, as Julian related in terms of the previous paper, we have a commitment to Justice Social Work Services. These are many of the most important provisions that we make as a council here. You're absolutely right that from my perspective, I would feel much more secure around a whole range of these areas if there was recurrent commitments from Scottish Government in respect of this area of funding in terms of the Section 27 grant. However, we work with the grant as we get it, and this relates to a whole range of our areas. If we didn't invest it in these areas, I would suggest that we would have a whole range of other risks to contend with, because we would be faced by making much more short-term investments which would have much more limited benefits to a local population. What we know in terms of this service is that this is something that's making a huge difference to individuals going through the programme. It's something that's been hugely welcomed by our Sheriff Principal and our court service at a time where they've had significant pressure. And if we are to maintain a leading edge service like this, we need to provide a degree of certainty to the staff who are looking to undertake what is very important work. So that is why we've, on a balance of probabilities, putting these posts forward for permanent arrangements. Now, as you say, in the future, and this again relates to the wider Section 27 arrangements, if there is a decision by government to reduce the expenditure in this area, over and above the fact that myself and the Chief Social Work Officer, I suspect, would be writing to Scottish Government in relation to the risks associated with doing so, we would obviously look to redeploy those staff into other roles. As has been highlighted, there's a range of areas, particularly within children's families, social work services, where this capacity could be gainfully employed in terms of the impact again we're providing within our communities. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have highlighted on numerous occasions relating to different policies, models of services, about the implications of short-term funding and the limited ability to look towards the longer term. So it is something that through COSLA it is highlighted as often as possible in relation to, you know, policy, strategy development, financial projections, but we can only do what we can. Councillor Anderson?
Thanks. There's quite a few people here talk about what would happen if this fund ceased. But can I ask, when was the last time social work actually spent their employment budget? Because every paper that I've seen, there's always been an underspend, a big underspend, because of the fact we've been unable to fill posts.
Okay, do you want to take that one, Eileen?
I suppose speaking on behalf of my finance colleagues, you know, there will be some underspend in terms of the employee staffing budget, and you're right, that's due to vacancies and turnover. But I suppose I was referring to my update earlier. We're actually in the best position that we've ever been in terms of vacancies, but we know that there's a national issue in terms of just attracting people into social care. And actually at the next committee after the recess, we'll be bringing the updated social work resources workforce plan, and there's a number of actions that have been identified in terms of to address that. But I take your point that we are doing everything we can to address that.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions. And could I just again formally congratulate in the Scottish Health Awards, a well-deserved award in recognition of the innovative and impactful work that you're doing. So thank you. And do we agree and approve the recommendations in section 2.1?
Approved.
Thank you. Moving on to items for noting, and item 8 is winter planning 2024 to 25. Debrief pages 79 to 86, and can I ask Craig to speak to the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, members will recall that we previously provided the winter plan in January of this year. So I won't go through all the background, but rather just jump to section 4 and some of the areas and the findings in terms of the debrief. So you'll recall that the plan was in effect split into 2 parts. Operation Flow covered the main bits related to the 3 acute hospitals, and there's a report on that provided at 4.11 and 4.12. Thereafter, 4.2 through to 4.12 lists the other areas that were covered as part of the wider winter plan. I won't go through all of those, but just a couple of points that you might want to take note of. You will see that 4.5, we had GP opening again over the Christmas, New Year and weekends during the highest demand periods in January, and something around 68% of our practices opened over that period, and that involved over 3,200 patients being managed by their own GP, as opposed to going through either accident emergency or out-of-hours services. We're also pleased to note that despite despite the frailty in the service, we managed to see through winter with a good response from all our external care providers, and sustainability of services worked well. However, at 4.9, you will see that despite an extended range of vaccination centres, drop-in centres, like the rest of the country, we have continued to see a reduction in the number of people being vaccinated. And that was also replicated in terms of our staff being vaccinated. We are therefore, as part of the plan for this year, doing specific pieces of work to try and increase that. And that includes the social care workforce as well as the healthcare workforce. You'll also see at 4.12 the good value that is received through the involvement of the Local Resilience Partnership, and that stood us in very good stead this year, in that the exercise we did in planning for winter included really inclement weather, which of course we then saw work through in terms of Storm Arwen, which occurred later on in the winter period. At 4.13, we have highlighted the main lessons learned, and you'll see these are split into, in effect, 3 main sections that are related to maximising flow, the update around the vaccinations, and also that relating to trying to ensure we've got appropriate levels of staffing across the peak period, such that we're not seeing a drop-off in our ability to manage flow. You'll also see that that links to the findings of the National Review, and those are set out at 4.14. And finally, at 4.16, you'll see that up to now, the plan was led through South Lanarkshire Health and Social Care Partnership by me. And given that I'm going to be retiring later, that is now going to move to be hosted within NHS Lanarkshire Planning Department. So whilst there will still be a strong South involvement in that process, the actual overall Lanarkshire Winter Plan will be hosted within the Planning Department. And beyond that then, I would take you back to the recommendations at paragraph 2, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. I don't see any comments or questions. Okay, could I just thank Craig for the report, and are we agreeable to the recommendations in section 2 of the report?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 9, the Care Inspectorate update for registered care services, 1st of January to the 31st of March 2025, pages 87 to 104, and could I ask Liam to speak to the report? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Committee, this is the regular report that we bring that gives some updates on all the registered care inspectorate services within South Lanarkshire that are in-house services but also external services. Section 3 of the report just gives a background to the care inspectorate policy and their practice. But if I can direct the committee to section 4, you'll see that within the time period that we're looking at, that we had 6 council registered in-house services that were inspected, and they're highlighted at table 1. And what you'll see within that, I hope you'll recognise, is that we're achieving 5s, which are very good across the board within that. So that's a great achievement for the in-house services. And at section 4 onwards as well, you'll see that there's then some narrative round about the particular services in terms of the children's, the elderly persons home and the care at home services that are highlighted. In section 5 of the report, we've highlighted some of the inspections that took place with the external services. You'll see there are a large number of services externally, and there were 25 that were inspected during that period. And at Appendix 2 within the report, you'll see the outcomes of those inspections also. There's nothing really of significant concern for us, but what we've highlighted is 2 inspections that took place. One's Auchinleck Home Care, and another one's Nether Latham, which is a children's home. We've highlighted Auchinleck because this was a care home provider that went into administration, and through the care inspectorate, working with them jointly, but also with the administrators, what we've been able to do is to support them and those residents as well, and they've managed to achieve sustain some good care inspector registration through, or care inspector outcomes throughout that. So that's been quite a difficult time for those service users, but we've actually managed to sustain some good services, or the provider has. In relation to Nether Latham, we've highlighted that as well because that's one of the children's houses within our area, and that has thrown up quite a bit of community activity and community interest within that. But we've been notified by the care inspector any actions that they think will be relevant for us to take, but they're working with that provider as well to make sure that those inspection grades come up. What I would say is that we have no children that are within that resource. So in relation to the committee, can I ask them just to refer them back to the recommendations, and it's for noting, and Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 give more details of the inspections that have taken place. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Liam. Councillor Faulkner.
Thanks, Chair. Page 89, 4.6, Blantyre Immediate Care. I take it that's Blantyre Life. It's just on the question, and taking back to Craig's point earlier, with a 29% reduction in home care due to assessments, and the fact that only 50% of the people using this service are then independent, is it value for money that we're paying £1,800 per person per week, which is equivalent to 3 home helps?
Do you want to take that, Craig?
Yeah, thank you. So just to confirm some of the numbers, what I said was that of the people who are going into Blantyre Life, they originally go in there at a time when previously they might have been transferred to ongoing residential or nursing care, or some of them may have had very large care at home packages. Following a period of intervention and support at Blantyre Life, around 50% of these people are then rehabilitated and provided with a level of support that they have been able to go home independently. In other words, they don't need any ongoing care at home, and nor are we continuing to pay significant costs in a nursing home or a residential care home, probably till the end of their life. There will be the other 50% who will predominantly go home with some level of care at home, but again, that is significantly less than the level that would have been available and ongoing required if they had just gone straight from hospital to home with a big care package. So yes, it is not just a good value for money process, it's also a very, very good quality of care for the individual who would prefer to be managed, who prefer to live in their own home independently than end up put into a nursing home or a care home for the rest of their days. So I think it's a very good service, and it's proven to be very cost effective, as well as providing a really good service for the individuals. Thank you.
Supplementary, Chair. So £1,800 per person per week. £1.8 million a year.
Sorry, Alan, I think Craig's already answered that, and it's a conversation you and I have had many times. You're looking at the longer term benefits and financial projections of this. It's not just a case that, you know, the cost per head, it's in the longer term that you're looking at. So I feel the point's really been answered here. Okay, so thanks for that. And could I ask Councillor Hose? Thanks.
It's our responsibility to hold the council to account, but also to commend when things are going well. And I must say the internal inspection outcomes, having 5 scores across the board, across children's houses, care home services, housing support, that is amazing. To have 5 in every category that's been assessed across all 3 of them, to be commended on your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hose. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that in my wind-up remarks. Yeah, the scores and the level of service and what that means in terms of the quality and the level of care that people are receiving, particularly under the current climate, is exceptional. So yes, I agree that should be recognised. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hose just raised the points that I was going to raise about the good inspection rates and the good work that's undertaken by all our staff in all departments, from the ground staff who do the bulk of the work right up to management, and I think they should be highly commended. But I don't like overstepping or crossing one of my colleagues as such, or any colleague for that matter in the council. But I had no knowledge of Blantyre Life. I'd never visited it. It was a point of principle because I didn't like how it was set up in the first instance. We were railroaded. But in saying that, a personal friend who in their 90s had to go to Blantyre Life, and one Friday I left here to go and visit. I was highly impressed from I stepped in the door till I came out. Now, sometimes I get a bit, when you show people and they're always saying how great things are, and you think, well, there must be some who maybe didn't have such an experience, but this gentleman in particular, his wife's dead, his family don't live local, but if he hadn't went to Blantyre Life, I am convinced either he wouldn't have been here now because he'd lost a lot of weight and he'd had to go to the hospital, or he wouldn't have got home. He's one of the ones, Craig, that has to have a package. That's the assessment that was done. And as it happens that day that I went in, the people were coming in to assess, and I said, I'll leave you and I'll go. So he has a good quality of life. He's very compos mentis. He's back going to church and doing things to the level that he can. So I can only say that whether it was right, wrong or indifferent that we had it in the first place, in that case, it was an excellent service, and the people were extremely nice, because me being me, I went into the wrong bit and then couldn't find where I was trying to go. But it was a lovely, and they didn't know, I didn't say who I was in just visiting. So yeah, I can understand some of the points, but I can also understand the principles that you're trying to, or the council's trying to put forward. And in that case, or the case that I know of, on a personal basis, it certainly has worked. And it's good to have a good news story in all departments. And I hope, well, Chair will do it better than me, we take that back to our staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Yeah, it's always good to know people's personal experiences as well. Thank you. Councillor Ross.
I was just wondering, Chair, if Councillor Logan could possibly explain why she was railroaded when it was a democratic decision by this council to go ahead with Blantyre Life. It amazes me. And also, every time I come to one of these meetings, Councillor Falconer decries Blantyre Life, and each time he's knocked down with whatever he's saying. He's got so much bias against Blantyre Life, I just cannot understand it. And I really get fed up with him bringing these points up at every one of these meetings we come to. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. I do. It's a democratic committee, so everyone has the right to have an opinion and ask a question, and that applies to everybody, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. I would hope that as chair, when it becomes inappropriate, I know when it is inappropriate, and I do think, with respect to Alan, that we have covered this, and I don't think it would be productive, and I'm sure that's not what Councillor Logan wanted to do in terms of our remarks, to go back over what all of the issues were before. I'm sure, yes, there could be a deeper discussion about that, but I think the important thing is that in terms of the service that Blantyre Life is providing, the quality is absolutely exceptional, and the financial benefit in terms of the longer term reduction in care packages that are being provided is clearly demonstrable, and is through the reports and the financial and audit reports that are produced. So with that, unless there are any other comments, I would just ask if we agree to note the report and recommendation to it.
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 10, it's the notification of contracts awarded 1st of October 2024 to 31st of March 2025, and it's pages 105 to 1110. And can I ask Suman to speak to the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. So this is a routine report for noting that committee members will be familiar with. So as set out under Section 3, it's a requirement of clauses 21.8 and 22.5 of standing orders and contracts. The details of acceptance of all tenders above £50,000 be reported retrospectively to relevant committee for noting, as is the case here today. Section 4 then highlights that these relate to contracts awarded for the period of October 1st, 2024 to 31st March 2025, with the details of that provided within Appendix 1. I then take you back to the recommendations under 2.1 and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Suman. I don't see any more comments or questions on it. Do we agree to note the report, recommendation 2.1?
Agreed.
Thank you. I don't have any other items of urgent business, but could I just say and acknowledge it's Craig's last meeting. Could I just say Craig's knowledge and skill and ability, in my experience as chair and previously when I was just as a councillor, is absolutely phenomenal, and you will be hugely missed. I'll pass on to Suman after this, I'm sure, or Liam, whoever, but from my own point of view, your knowledge, your help and your support will be hugely missed, and your stewardship in terms of the winter plan. When you look at the innovative developments, even since I've become a councillor, which isn't that long, in terms of the Home First and the impact that that's had, the impact in relation to delayed discharge, which if you look at South Lanarkshire across the benchmarking landscape, South Lanarkshire is actually one of the lowest. I'm not saying, obviously, we're not all working in difficult times, but if you look at the results and how South Lanarkshire performs, and also financially in terms of the IGB, we are in a much better position than a lot of other areas. And that is mainly down to the stewardship, you of Craig and other, senior officers. So for my part, Craig will be hugely missed, and your reports, they're concise, they're easy to read, you get to the point really quickly. So I would personally like to thank you for all of your input and the work that you do. Certainly for me as chair, and I'm sure in terms of the IGB, will be hugely missed, particularly the inroads into the acute sector and the hospital sector and GPs. Actually, achieving, to get a service over Christmas, New Year holidays, that's no mean feat. So with that, I will pass on to people who I'm sure would want to add their contributions more eloquently than me. I'll take Sue and then Liam. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I'm actually for eloquence in terms of that. And I will have plenty of opportunities to embarrass Craig over the coming weeks ahead. Just to restate, though, as you've highlighted, Chair, Craig's knowledge is second to none in terms of our health and care system. His diligence is, again, second to none in terms of both his approach to work, his professionalism as he approaches his work, but also in terms of how he supports his team in the widest sense possible, not just within our Health and Social Care Partnership and social work resources more widely, but both within the Council and the Health Board. But the key thing I would highlight to committee is Craig's values. Since I've been with the Council, the IGB and the Health Board, I've always been struck by how Craig very much leads with his values. And that's reflected in not just the work he's done around the activity we present here, but lots of other work behind the scenes that many people aren't familiar with. If I think about refugee resettlement, for example, being a case in point, where Craig has gone the extra mile to make sure that we are leading with compassion, and that's entirely to his own credit. Thank you.
Thanks, Suman. Liam?
I suppose I can't resist. I didn't realise I was going to be asked, but I may as well. I think it's right we acknowledge Craig's commitment to South Lanarkshire Council and the Health and Social Care Partnership. I've got a feeling it won't be the last that we see of him, because I think he's going to struggle to leave us. I think what's been said is he's got a vast knowledge and experience. I think we'll probably see him on the telly as a chaser, because he's got his general knowledge about everything, not just about health and about social work or social care issues, it's impressive. We've said about his values. He's got a great value base. He's got a great work commitment. He's a great team player and a great manager and mentor to a lot of people. He almost could be a social worker, and I'm sure that's what he'll probably come back as. He's going to leave a big gap with his knowledge, but he's also going to leave a big gap just with his personality as well, as part of the management team and as part of the Health and Social Care Partnership. There'll be a lot of embarrassing moments for him going forward, and we'll try and make it as uncomfortable for him as possible. But thank you, and thanks, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thanks, Liam. John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would like to concur with everything that's been said by my colleagues here. In the time I've known Craig, I've found him nothing but 100% professional in everything he's done, and he'll be sorely missed. In fact, I think he's far too young. I'm 78, and he's only 61, and he's retiring. I think it's ridiculous. He's got lots more years that he could give to South Lanarkshire. But if he does intend to retire, I wish him all the very best for the future. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks, John. Just to echo these comments, we'll stop embarrassing you, Craig. Did you want to come in and say something?
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. It's 44 years I'll have done in predominantly the health service, but more latterly and alongside colleagues from social work and the wider council, and you've made me very welcome. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. If there are no other comments, I'll just wish Craig all the best in whatever path he intends to take. And with that, I will close the meeting. and thank you for your attendance and the reports. Thank you.